part of being the youth pastor is being awkward, right?
Sure.
That's par for the course. If you are making the elders choose between you and somebody else, they're gonna choose the somebody else. Be a dork.
Welcome back to the Practically Pastoring Podcast. My name is Frank, and I'm glad that you are here. The whole gang is here. We are excited for another episode. I'm here in Tampa, Florida. Up in Baltimore,
Safety
Maryland, we got Jeffrey Simpson.
Hey, everybody.
Down in Sumter, South Carolina, we got Delmar Pete.
Oh, now I'm unmuted. Howdy ho. All right.
Next to me in the Morning After Ministry Studio / Safety Harbor Community Church Auditorium, we got Andrew Larson.
Can we use worshitorium?
Sanctuary.
Worship centers.
Kind of like cafetoriums in middle school.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Timothy Miller.
It's the worship center. Is it not?
It's a
Guys,
sanctuary.
I feel like
Anyway.
worship center is
Sanctuary, that's fine.
Worship
It's actually a
I
really
don't think
interesting
it's big enough
conversation.
of a room to be like we use the vernacular worship center.
Yeah.
I've always been like, can we just like redub it the chapel? We need to like do a makeover and hey, it's now the chapel.
So-
Yeah,
Just
worship
a
center to
thought.
me comes from like peak multi-site, almost
mega
irrelevant.
church.
Yeah, that was a fad.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does
No
it
wonder
say
Tim
about-
likes it.
It's just been the name of our building forever. It's on the side of it.
What does it say about a church when they distinct between sanctuary, worship center, auditorium? Like what does it say about the church?
Probably not much.
I think auditorium is more multi-use space.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it might say that whether or not how they view the corporate gathering, but it probably doesn't. It's probably just words.
Yeah.
Or whatever the signage says, and that's what they've
Yeah.
been using for
It
years.
totally came from some practical thing, I would think. Probably not a, Lord, prepare me to be a worship center. It just doesn't work,
That does not work.
Doesn't work.
All right.
not
Well, we have a good episode for you. Today, we're going to talk about introverted youth pastors trying to do their best. And we're going to talk about a person who works at a church where everyone on staff are all related. That's exciting stuff. Before we dive in, Andrew, can you tell us about church merch?
You mean merch for your church?
Yeah, tell us.
Listen, I don't know where you're getting your church merch, but you should head over to promotionsguy.com/church merch, where you can look at exciting mugs like this one, t-shirts, and all kinds of branded items for your church. It's going to be the best price. And not only is it going to be the best price, you know that it is. Tim, that was nice. Thanks, bud. You'll also know that it was created ethically because Promotions Guy, they don't just let anybody make their gear. They go and they tour every factory to make sure that the employees are being paid well and well treated and are in humane conditions, so you can feel good about what you're buying for your church, because you know there's that one homeschool mom that's going to ask where the stuff was sourced. And if you order your stuff from church merch, you'll be able to answer with confidence. So again, go to promotionsguy.com/church merch. Merch for your church.
Link is in the show notes.
Homeschool moms
Hey.
catching strays today, huh? Nice.
For real.
Isn't like both of y'all's wives kind of do homeschooling?
Not now. My oldest is I'm gonna be a homeschool dad next year.
Frank, where you
Whereas-
been? His wife's been teaching for like 3 years. We've been doing this. What are we talking about?
Anywho, let's dive into our first question.
And Tim, doesn't your oldest daughter just homeschool the rest of them or something?
Yeah. Stop. We actually are going to be more of a homeschool family this coming year than we ever have been. So
It's like the Partridge Family.
yeah.
Exactly.
Or the Duggars, who have always been Tim's heroes.
Oh, wow.
That's why you have so many kids.
From the Facebook group, here's the first question. All right, friends, what are some tips on how to not be so introverted? I'm a brand new youth pastor at a church that has about 50 to 60 kids each week for youth group. I've only been doing this for about 4 months, so there's obviously going to be a lot of growing and relationship building to come. But sometimes I just feel super awkward when it comes to small talk. I don't want students to feel like I don't want to be in a conversation with them. I just suck at small talk. LOL is what he wrote. Do I just embrace the awkward or push through, or are there ways to get my introvertedness to subside? All right, guys. How would we help this I'm guessing young man to help him be less awkward around the youths?
the Utes.
I mean, part of being the youth pastor is being awkward, right?
For sure.
That's par for the
Just
course.
Come to terms with the fact that you're not cool. You're just not.
That's
Lean
probably the
into
best
the dad
advice.
jokes. Be a dork, and yeah, it's fine. The kids really don't care how cool you are. They care that you care, but they don't care if you're cool.
But if you try to be something that you are not, oh, they will notice and they will call you out for it. Because
Hello, fellow youths.
teenagers are ruthless.
They
in
are
that department.
savage, bro.
I if I were you, I would lean into it. Maybe some talking points would be good that you could just have him and ask this set of questions that will help guide a conversation if you're really just not great at starting a conversation. But as far as the introverted extrovertedness, I think you just need to know that, hey, at the end of the day, after youth group, you're probably going to be more drained than an extrovert might be. So I think knowing what's going to drain you and what's going to fill you is going to be really important for longevity in ministry. So knowing that you're an introvert, that's good. You don't need to change that, but you need to know what's going to fill me because I'm probably going to be drained after large group gatherings.
I was totally expecting, Tim, when you said like come up with a set of questions, that you were going to have like a chat GPT list of questions to.
Certainly will, but in about 3
Hey,
seconds.
yeah.
What a missed opportunity, huh?
You know,
It's coming.
well, and also to add to all that, it's okay to let the kids know. You know what I'm saying? And you could do it in a creative way. Like in your youth group session, you can have like instead of game time or whatever, you can have let's help whatever your name is not be awkward and shy. And then you call a student up, you sit on the stage, the student asks you awkward questions that you have to answer. It's a funny way of letting the whole youth group know that you
You need
are
approval of those questions.
well, yeah, okay, but it's a funny way of letting the students know that you are kind of awkward and that you're trying to figure out how to be around them. But it's funny because when they get you on stage, knowing now that you're kind of awkward and shy, and they're asking you questions, it makes you their hero because you're willing to step into the awkward with them and be funny with it. So that'd be something like super practical on the ground that you can do to introduce that concept. But then also just stop being awkward. Or just stop being shy. That's it. You know, right? It's pretty easy. Just no. It's hard. I struggle with that too in certain settings. Mine necessarily isn't with students, but sometimes I will get around some. You know, how in average city you have affluent people and then you have extremely affluent people. You know what I'm talking about? Sometimes when I get around the extremely affluents, I struggle with that. So one thing I do is in my mind, I think about this concept of entrance ramps when it comes to conversations. What's your entrance ramp for the conversation? So when you're listening, where's your commonality that you can say something? One good thing about introverts that I actually covet is y'all are way better at never being accused of being all about your own self and selfish and talking about yourself all the time. I know extroverts, several of us, I know I've been accused of like, Dale talks about himself a lot. So I actually think you can lean into your strengths a little bit. Be an amazing listener. Like that is super okay. Actually, that'll probably carry you further in ministry than doing what I'm doing right now and talking too much.
I was going to piggyback off of kind of what Tim said too. Like, if you know you're introverted, I know that I'm like an introverted or an extroverted introvert. So in the right settings, I can, I'm personable, but I need like downtime after that. So I'm assuming that, let's say your youth group's on Wednesday night, you might want to talk to your leadership about maybe being able to come in late on Thursday morning, give yourself some space to just like decompress. Also, if there's 50 or 60 kids in your youth group, dear God, please tell me there are other adults helping you, because that's a pretty big youth group. So if that's the case, I'm going to guess there's like a veteran youth leader or two who already have great relationships with the kids. Lean into their like relational capital. It doesn't have to all be about you getting over your awkwardness and like having all the relationship with the kids. You can just be the like teacher up front guy for a while those things get built over time. And then just like a really practical thing, one thing that helped me was like I just would drink a coffee before youth group and get my energy level a little bit elevated so that some of that awkward desire I have to like kind of shrink into the corner would kind of go away because I was a little bit more hype than I would normally be. So maybe that's a thing for you, maybe not, but that's, to me, that's like a real practical thing is just like make sure that the other youth leaders are kind of like helping you manage the relationships with the other students.
Can I offer just one more thing? Because Jeff, you hit really tangible on the ground. Practically, if you were to just grab a couple of students who you know, maybe 3 or 4, maybe even 2 or 3, and say, can we get coffee or hot chocolate, whatever the deal is, once a week, and just sit down and talk with them an hour, You'll be surprised. You'll be more exposed to their world, which is a lot different than our world, right? Growing up, just being able to sit down one on one with two or three, let them know, hey, I'm sitting down with you because I really want to get to know y'all better as your new student pastor, but also like I want to be able to relate. You can just be honest. And man, if you sit down, that's something I've had to do. I used to, as a younger youth pastor, I struggled with parents. I don't know if any of y'all ever struggle with parents, especially when you're in like your younger 20s. So what I started doing was having coffee with parents like once a week. I picked two or three men in my youth group whose fathers would sit down with me. Bro, just sitting down with these fathers for 2-3 years, man, it helped me talk to parents. So a lot of times we think that like it's got to happen in the big group setting, but you could do it off the student ministry clock of when your time, youth gatherings are. Meet with them off the clock and in small groups, and be open about it. And I think you will find you'll get a lot of mileage with talking with people when you talk to them in a more comfortable setting.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing as Dell. I don't think I ever struggled with being insecure or uncomfortable talking to students, but I definitely had a lot of insecurities talking to parents. And I think the reality was just like I was in my mid-20s and these people were upwards to 10 to 15 years older than me, and I had like a naive view of like my own self and what I thought they would be interested in. But I think this principle applies to them as much as it applies to students. I forgot if it was Andrew or Tim just mentioned this. They're like, it's not about how cool you are, but how you care about them. And if you can, like, when you spend time with these students, just like remember some facts of their own interest, whether it's like, hey, this person.
How did the baseball game go?
Exactly. I was gonna say sports for boys.
How was the play? Because
musical theater.
Know what they're into and just ask because they want to talk about themselves anyway.
Exactly. And like there was, I remember there was one kid in my youth group. Man, 10 years ago, he's probably like 24, 23 now, who was like really, really distant from me. And like, he didn't connect because he didn't play sports. He didn't like hip hop music or anything like that. And I was struggling to figure out how to connect with him. And I remember just asking like, what do you do for fun? And he's super into like, this tabletop game called Warhammer. And it's just like, I think it's just like a version of, it's like, isn't that in the same vein as like Dungeons and Dragons?
It's expensive Dungeons and Dragons.
It's expensive. Yeah. And I remember when he told me that, I like went on Wikipedia and like Googled like some information about it. And I just asked him a couple questions about Warhammer. That kid like became my best friend. He like wanted, every time he saw me, he talked about Warhammer. And guess what? I did not care about Warhammer, but it allowed him
But you cared about him?
But I cared about him. And so I would listen to him talk for like 5 minutes straight about what he did in Warhammer and some figure that he painted or whatever. And like, that kid was bought in because of that. So you get to know the kid's interest. Tim, what did our AI overlords tell us?
Here is your ChatGPT prompt for our friend out there. What questions, just type this in, what questions could an introverted youth pastor ask teenagers to help generate conversations? And it will instantly give you 30 great questions broken down into several different categories, starting with fun and lighthearted, then moving into hobbies and interests, friendships and relationships, school and life experiences, and then faith and spiritual conversations.
Give us 1 or 2 questions.
Sure. For the fun and lighthearted, this one's super easy. Right when students are walking in, hey, what was the best part of your week? Give me a highlight. In my house, we call it highs, lows. Give me one high, give me one low. When you want to get a little bit more serious, maybe friendships and relationships, you could ask them, hey, who do you usually hang out with at school? Or in your opinion, what do you think makes a good friend? That could generate a solid conversation. Or you could go into school a little bit. What was your favorite class this week? Least favorite class? If you could change one thing about your school, what would it be? Faith and spiritual. How about what's something about God or faith that's been on your mind lately? Any spiritual questions that you could generate there? Kind of cool. And then there's some bonus land questions, some either ors just for funsies. Summer or winter, video games or board games. Like those types of questions could generate what are they interested in real fast.
Actually, I was going to say that was my go-to is try to so if I had a group of students in front of me, I would get them to debate about something. So I'd be like, all right, no, for real though, who has the better French fries? Is it Chick-fil-A or is it McDonald's? And they'll like start fighting each other.
But really, you only need to,
awesome.
I would say memorize 3 of these questions per week and you'll be good. You'll be able to to talk to half a dozen students easily. And looking at this list, I'm like, man, as a youth pastor, I would have sent this to my small group leaders and said, hey guys, if you're struggling with conversations when students are walking in, because as Jeff said, you should not be the only guy who can communicate with students. Like there should be others in the room who are also building those relationships. So I would share this list with my small group leaders who would have probably been like, this is gold, and would have ran with this.
I think in general, it's a fake it till you make it situation. One of my go-tos is in Mere Christianity. C.S. Lewis has the quote about,
It's great.
if I find myself, wondering if I really love God, I find that if I act as if I do, and I do the things that I would do if I really loved God, I will come to find that I do love God, and that it applies to loving your neighbor or whatever. So what would you do if you weren't an introvert? Who would you go up and talk to?
Wow.
And then do
great.
those things for a couple weeks and you'll be fine. We, in our house, my wife is a special ed teacher, and we have some boys who are a little bit neurospicy. So we talk about, it's called cocktail speech. And it's here are the 3 or 4 topics that they pull out in awkward situations. I think youth pastors need one of these. Think of Michael Scott, Somehow I Manage, right? The one chapter entitled Gum. Everybody loves the guy that gives them a piece of gum.
Everybody.
Be that guy. Hey, did you get new shoes? There's a middle school boy in your youth group that is coming with new shoes this week, I promise. Dude, sweet haircut. We said that to Jeff today when we started recording. He lit up like a Christmas tree.
I
He's
did.
still smiling.
Hey
Notice.
Tim, did you get new shoes?
He did.
I might have gotten some new shit.
So notice, pay attention, be observant. And it's the on-ramp that Del was talking about. So what can get you into a conversation, but also where can you back out and let them talk about themselves? Because
That's good.
just from a psychological standpoint, once they start talking, they expend more energy. When you expend more energy, endorphins are released, and you're like, wow, I feel really happy because I released endorphins. When really it was, I expended energy when I was talking, but I feel like I had a great conversation. So get them talking.
Andrew, that is so solid. Somebody once told me, if you can get somebody talking about yourself, you made a friend. And most people want to talk about themselves. That's why the Tim's questions are phenomenal. Now, the one student I've heard that's tough, and maybe y'all can shine some light on this. When I first came to the church I'm at now, I stepped into the student ministry there, and half of the youth group are introverts. And the thing, if you've ever been around a true introvert, sometimes if you're an extrovert, you think they're having a bad time when they're just sitting there, but they're actually having a good time. And I had to really get around that because sometimes the introverts, especially when you're talking with a student and you're introverted, you're both struggling to have that conversation. I'd love to hear if y'all have any tips on how do you have conversations with introverted students who may not know how to do it as well. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about that.
I just want to go back to what Andrew said and ask, do you give your kids cocktails? What did I hear there?
Cocktail shrimp.
Cocktail shrimp.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a different.
Del, some people just want to be sat with. Like, you don't have to talk with them to sit with them.
Yeah.
Fair. That's good.
Some of the closest friends I have in my life, we just sit and stare at our phones together, and it's magical.
Amazing.
It's not actually true, but
I mean, I think even one principle that is true is introverts are not that they hate people and don't want to be around people. They just don't get energy off of being with people. Does that make sense? Introverts still like compliments. Introverts
Yeah,
still
I'm tired after I'm around a group of people.
Yeah.
Like most of the time.
Yeah. I think introverts are like anybody. They still like compliments. They still want people to know them and be into them. They might just not care if it's with 100 people. Does that make sense? Like they prefer just one-on-one or they don't necessarily need to be around people as much as other people. So I would say that a lot of the feedback we just gave still applies. You just gotta be mindful that that kid might not be uber eager to be going to a group setting with other boys or other girls or whatever to have a chat with them. But I'll say this: the complimenting the shoes or the hair is really good. Just be careful with if you're an adult guy.
yeah, that's a middle
complimenting
school
girls.
boy.
Yeah.
Trend. You're like, girl, those jeans are working. Don't do that. Avoid
Not
that one.
advisable.
Bro,
Yeah,
every time jumps right over the line.
I was giving an example of what not to do.
Good,
Hey, cool
yeah.
Crocs, man. That's what you want.
Yeah. I mean, just be careful when you're complimenting clothes and even hair. Just be careful when you're going cross gender. Okay, just be mindful of that. Yep.
Hang on, I've got one more that has made a lasting impact.
Cannot wait for this.
The year was, I think, 2014. I was teaching a confirmation class, and it was a really awkward group because, as many confirmation classes, depending on your denominational background, there were like 5 kids that were not at all involved with the youth group. But of course, dad was an elder because he had a nice car. And then several kids that were super involved in the youth group, but parents didn't actually go to the church. And so it was a very odd mix. And it was time for new glasses. And I had gotten my Warby Parker, shout out to Warby Parker. They will like mail you glasses to try on, and then you pick them out. And I let kids choose my glasses. It took an hour when we were supposed to be talking about sanctification or something. And a group of girls that didn't like each other and never talked, like, got together to make sure that they were the coalition of the willing to vote for whatever glasses they want. And I've been wearing rounded blue glasses ever since. And I have done 4 of those girls' weddings now, that they are in their early 20s. So it was a thing that it was let them get advice from them. Hey, I'm struggling with this. What do you think? And give them some ownership, whether it be about the ministry. Hey, should we do this activity or that activity? Or I want to buy my wife a present. Should it be this necklace or this bracelet? That's the kind of thing that you can do with girls where, the hey, nice hair, nice shoes might not work as well.
Yeah, I understood your statement now. With like the girls in your youth group, letting them choose things is actually safer than the guys, because guys will troll.
Yes.
Guys will be like, hey, Pastor Andrew, you should wear a turquoise shirt when you preach next Sunday. And it's like, you just want to see me look stupid.
You just want to see me dress like Tim.
I'll use one last caveat. We'll move on to the next question. Everything we just talked about applies to adults as well. So, like, if you're like a younger pastor in your 30s and you're like, how do I connect with the 60-year-old member of my church? Get to know them, find out their interests, and remember their interests. Does that make sense? Like, all this stuff that we just all this stuff we just discussed applies to adults as well. Also,
be ready to meet with them at weird times, like the middle of the afternoon. They're not doing early morning coffee. They're not coming out at night. But 2:00 in the afternoon, hey, they'll meet with you.
Yeah, and the same thing like last time with Andrew said, don't compliment an older woman's jeans either. That's not appropriate. So
no one needed to say that.
Yoga at the community center is paying off, Betsy.
Next question. How do you handle being on staff where the rest of the staff is related? I imagine this is a thing at a lot of small churches. I'm on a staff at a church where it is me, the lead pastor, the children's pastor who's his wife, and the office admin who's their daughter-in-law. When the office admin was hired, I voiced some concern to the elders about how they are all family and will spend tons of time together outside of work hours and likely talk church stuff. I know the pastor can't help himself talk work. The elders suggested we have regular staff meetings to help avoid this. But when the staff meetings were at the pastor's house, needless to say, you feel a bit like an outsider at the family home when the family is sitting around the table. How do you navigate staff issues when staff members are related? So, Tim, how do you deal with the fact that your father is an elder?
I will say we have had family members on staff before, not my family members.
Nepo babies. That was a Muppet Babies
we had
reference.
two different husband and wife tag teams on staff together at 2 different times in the history of Lakeview, and I can just be really honest, neither of them ended all that well.
Was it the worship ministry?
I'm not going to say a word.
No, but one of my very best friends had a youth pastor and worship leader who were married to each other, and it didn't end well. I don't want to talk about Lakeview. I'm just saying one of my very best friends and closest colleagues and confidants in ministry.
I have told all of my children, I love you dearly. I will never hire you. It's just a rule for me personally. I've been around it. I haven't seen it end well. I'm not saying it can't. Like maybe there are scenarios where you can have your entire family on the same staff,
like the Righteous Gemstones.
Like the Righteous Gemstones, and it'll be hilarious. And HBO will pick it up, and it'll be a great hit show.
I haven't seen it because I don't watch filthy television.
I didn't say I'd seen it either. I'm just saying, this is common in ministry land, especially at smaller churches.
But it's not just smaller churches. I worked at Fellowship Church where
you're right.
2/3 of the staff have the last name Young.
Nope, you're right.
When you have it's
yep.
It's common in churches in general. So
It's also common in cults too, right? If
it's
I'm not
common,
mistaken.
but Joe, it's common everywhere. How many insurance agencies are Robinson and Sons or Robinson
And
you know,
businesses.
that's the thing. This is a part of the world, and is it awkward?
I'm not
Sure.
saying it can't work. I'm
Yeah.
just saying I've seen it go awry more often than I've seen it like end really well.
Whoever posted this, and we don't know who it is, but you're not the senior pastor. If you are making the elders or leadership of your church choose between you and somebody else, they're going to choose the somebody else. So this is a how do you learn and live and function in this environment, because you're not changing the environment. Is the environment right? Maybe not. Would you do it this way if you were the guy in the head chair? Probably not. But you don't have that choice right now. So what you do is you interject yourself into that family. You say, hey, should I put my wedding picture on the wall so that everybody's wedding picture can be exhibited at staff meeting? Don't actually do that. That'd be bad. But and you realize that this is how the world works sometimes, and it's not right and it's not fair. And if you don't like it when you are in that chair 20 years from now, 15 years from now, don't make it that way. But my mechanic is a father and son team. My life insurance comes from a father and daughter sales team. This isn't just church world. This is the world. And so you can choose if you want to be a part of it or not. But again, the elders made that decision when they were hired. You can't bark up that tree anymore and expect to keep working there. So submit to the authority that God has placed over you. And if you don't like it, then leave.
Andrew either crosses the line or gives the most brutally harsh advice.
That was
One way
great
or the other.
advice.
It's
one
no,
way or
I mean,
the
in the
middle
group chat,
ground,
when
Andrew.
we talked about talking about this question, I only said one word. I just said resign.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, that's-
I don't know. I'm reading this question and trying to figure out where the thing that anybody did anything wrong is. I don't see it. I understand what you're saying about like they're going to talk. Of course, they're going to talk about
Sure.
church stuff. I mean,
but there's nepotism everywhere in the world.
yeah, but
There are churches that I know in their bylaws have like a rule where like spouses don't get hired at the church and stuff like that.
and I get that. That's fine. I mean, and we don't put like two people that are related in the nursery together. You know,
Yeah,
that's like
right.
you just like
That's a wisdom
or
issue.
they don't count money together. Like, sure, but that's not what this guy is saying. And to Andrew's point, unless I'm not understanding the full situation, it sounds like when you came onto staff, this was already the case, which
What-
means
it seems like husband and wife were there,
And then their daughter-in-law
and
got
the
hired.
daughter-in-law got
So
hired.
I mean,
But if you're at a small church, the employee pool isn't very big.
it's not big. Yeah,
I don't know if you've tried to hire somebody, but Indeed does not have a ton of postings for, hey, here's a part-time assistant to the pastor position,
Right.
with where grandma can do the childcare in the office. You know, it's not a position that lots of people are clamoring to get.
So there's two possible issues here. One, it could be that this guy is having a concern about the work-life balance for this family, and so therefore he's asking this question in the sense of like, I'm concerned about their, which is, I mean, it's valid, but at the same time, like you said, Jeff, like all of us are going to bring work home, talk to our spouses, whatever the case may be. The other side of this, and again, this could be inferring from the question, is that there's awkward situations that he's putting himself in because like they're talking about his ministry when he's not around or making decisions. I do think the staff meetings at his house, at the lead pastor's house, is odd, but like that's all. Like Jeff,
They might not
that
have
could
office
be a,
space.
that could be a preference issue and not necessarily like
odd maybe, but wrong. No, you can't.
I don't know if it's
not
wrong, right?
necessarily.
Because like you live in a parsonage right by the church.
Yeah.
If you were to have a staff, you might say, "Hey, our living room is way more comfortable."
Oh,
than
we've
these
had
places."
meetings on my deck before when the weather's nice and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
super nice and inviting. So now maybe the pastor he's working under is like not very welcoming to outsiders, and that's why this guy feels like an outsider. Or maybe the person who wrote this has some deep-seated insecurities about being left out for whatever reason, and they're manifesting themselves in this situation now. And instead of doing the deep work of figuring out like, why do I feel like an outsider everywhere I go, he's trying to offload that dysfunction onto these people are doing something wrong to me.
Well, let's just exegete the comment a little bit. So we have the senior pastor. His wife is the children's person. The daughter-in-law is the office admin, which means that the poster is either the worship guy or the youth guy or the worship youth combo.
Probably combo.
So statistically speaking, you're going to be the first one off the ship anyway.
And we don't know if anybody but the senior pastor is full time either.
No.
Right.
Probably not.
And so you're not going to win this fight. So,
but I think there are some practical ways to navigate.
Sure, there's practical ways to navigate it, but to think that you're going to change the culture,
no,
it's not going to happen.
I think if you can have a healthy conversation, like I would absolutely start there. Maybe boundaries, expectations. You could clarify those.
Pastor Ted, you are my boss. Your wife is not.
Yep.
That, or maybe you need an elder to be in and be the one to say that.
Well, and another question I have about how, like, when the office admin was hired, I voiced concerns to the elders. That's a yellow flag to me about relationship between you and the senior pastor. Why didn't you talk to the senior pastor about this first?
Right.
That sounds like you're unwilling or unable. Maybe it's either you're unable to because he's not open to it, or you're unwilling to because of fear of man. Go to him directly and say, "Man, this I don't." Have an honest. This makes me feel super uncomfortable. I'm not even sure why, but I just want to talk about it. Instead of that, the way I'm reading this, you almost kind of went around him to the elders, almost in a way that sounds like a tattletale kind of, and like, this is I don't like this, and they basically are showing you, well, I mean, have a staff meeting, I guess, but it's not a problem to us. So,
and if you have good elders, the elder will actually go to the lead pastor or senior pastor and say, "Hey, why is the staff coming to me? Why aren't they coming to you?" Mm-hmm. Which has happened at Lakeview. And in the next staff meeting, I've just made it clear, hey, if there's any issues, please come to me first. And if we can't work through it, then we'll bring in an elder. But I'm with you on this, Jeff. I would say this, even though you're not family, you still have value on staff.
Yeah.
Like don't consider yourself unvaluable just because you're not part of that family. But if you have worked through this process, you've had healthy conversations, and it's still not seeming like a great fit, I mean, it's possible that this might not be a good long-term spot for you. And that's okay too.
But it also might be the best solution for the church.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. Again, we don't know who's full-time, who's part-time. But how many churches have we heard, or how many conversations have we had in the side when, somebody hired so-and-so to be their admin, and we're like, ooh, that's not going to end well. Hiring your daughter-in-law, now, who knows how long she's going to be working for you, but in general, whispers and group texts from other churches probably not going to happen when the pastor's daughter-in-law is the office admin. So maybe the elders saw this as a wise thing of, hey, we only have X amount of dollars to pay this person, and so we can only afford a part-time 25-year-old as opposed to, to whatever it is. I get the frustration. I don't know that there's a problem, and I really don't know that there's any way that you can keep pushing and come out looking like anything but the, unnecessarily frustrated person.
Well, I don't know. I'm having a hard time. I'm being the awkward youth pastor, having a hard time getting in there. I don't know why. But, to kind of, it's what I thought was basically a summary of what a lot of you guys said. If you can't roll with it, then you probably need to roll out, because there is a problem. And I think the problem is, quite honestly, this struggle you're having. Okay, that is the problem. So you need to address that, probably like in a trifecta way. I mean this. If you're not going to leave, you're like, I'm committed to this church, I want to stay here, I would go see counseling, because this may say something about your own leadership and maybe some of your insecurities, and then I would consider having a conversation with the lead pastor. But I would work on myself first in this situation, because I think Jeff even said it. He didn't see anything wrong here. Like, this is, especially in smaller churches, this is not abnormal. First church I was ever at, the pastor was the pastor, and his wife was 15 other things in the staff. And if you're not cool with that, and when I had staff meeting, I had it at his house. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Can that be used for abuse? Yes. And I think that's probably where some of this guy's concerns coming through. But if you see no evidence of abuse, then maybe this is just a godly family that a lot of them have been called. We know there are a lot of people who are uniquely called, and their children are called, and their children's children are called. The church I'm in right now, Dan, his dad he's not on staff, but he's a pastor, and he does teach at our church. And now his son, who was one of my students, is about to go to seminary. He's in Bible college now to be a preacher. So, and you know what? I celebrate that. So if you can't find a way to celebrate it, if you can't find a way to enjoy it, I would look at my own self and work on it. And at the end of the day, if you can't get around that, then just go to a different place, because at the end of the day, you'll just be a hindrance in that church, especially if God's working in big ways.
Yeah. We'll check the comments of this post to see if there's any more context of like the concerns and stuff like that. But if this is a thing that's uncomfortable, like everyone said, maybe this is an opportunity to learn and grow, and then step into another role, learning from this. Like, hey, I'm not going to apply it to a church that has families like this, but if you jump around to other small churches, it might be difficult to find that. So, because even if the wife isn't on staff, or if the daughter-in-law isn't the admin, families still run churches, right? Like there's still like small churches like that. There's a family, like the wife is the unofficial women's director, and she might have more sway than even the lead pastor in some churches. So like those issues that you need to navigate even function even if they're not paid by the church. So
this kind of thing can happen even in a church where it's not that they're related, but they've been on staff together for like 20 years.
That's a good
and
one.
You're the new youth pastor, and you're the only one, and they go to coffee together, and they go to, and I've been on.
They go on vacation together.
Their families go on vacation together, and they might as well, for all functional reasons, in this case, be family, because they just have deep long-term relationships that is going to lead to them having conversations without you, and you just kind of have to get over it.
Yeah, that's good.
Agreed.
Trust in your own competency. Like if you're called and capable to do the job that you're hired to do, it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, that's good. Well, hope you enjoyed the show. We'll have one next week, but until then, please join our Facebook group. Please like and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, and find us on Instagram at Practically Pastoring. We like to post clips there. We'd love for you to share them if you find them useful and helpful. Till next time, I'm Frank Gill.
I'm Jeff Simpson.
I'm Delmar Pete.
I'm Andrew Larson.
And I'm Timothy Miller.
This is Practically Pastoring. Bye.